Nico Iamaleava is ranked what in the new college football 25 video game? Top 10 Vols in that video game, their rankings, plus some number changes. A lot of roster management here on a Tuesday, and plenty more. Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, good Tuesday morning, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Vols. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every single day. I am your host, Eric Kane. Big shout outs to Game Time for making us part of their routine as well, bringing us coverage of this show. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the promo code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Shout out everydayers for making us a part of your morning routine. Your segment's coming up in segment 3. We're going to get into your questions on several different topics. Brent Hubbs, VolQuest.com, will stop in to talk a little SEC Media Days and the commit of Travis Smith from over the weekend. That's in segment number 2. But first, in segment number 1, Tennessee roster changes, some number changes, as well as the college football 25 video game, the top 10 Vols in their rankings. That is coming up first right here on Locked On Vols. You can watch us, listen to us, subscribe to us, download us, all that for free wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, Locked On Vols on the YouTube channel. Let's go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. Let's download if you're listening. That's how the show continues to grow. All right, so let's start with the overall rankings for the college football EA Sports college football 25 video game. We've been discussing this throughout the summer a little bit. It's been good content because summer months are pretty tough. And you had the early release yesterday at about 4 o'clock Eastern time. The public release, to my knowledge, is coming up later in the week. So a lot of you guys that are listening and watching right now probably on that early release list and are going to start playing that video game at some point in time. Maybe you're playing it right now and listening to us as well. Fact of the matter is, what came out 3 years ago saying that EA Sports College Football was going to return, the video game is now here. It's this week. And with that comes rankings and overalls and speeds and attributes and all that type of stuff. And so it's fun to talk about when looking ahead, of course, to Tennessee's football season in 2024. So, SEC Media Day talks coming up here in a matter of seconds or a matter of minutes. But first, James Pearce obviously is going to be the top-rated volunteer in this video game at 95 overall. He is the second highest-rated player from the SEC. He's fourth highest overall in the video game at 95 overall, and that's no surprise. Of course, double-digit sacks a season ago. James Pearce projected to be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft at current standing. 89 agility, 95 acceleration, 91 awareness, 85 strength, 88 speed, 6'5", 243-pound pass rusher, coming in at a 95 overall. The second highest rated volunteer comes in at an 89 overall ranking, and that is Cade Mays. So James Pearce is the only one in the 90s. That's probably accurate if I was sitting here right now. We think Nico can get in there in the 90s and Lance Hurd and so on and so forth. But right now, that's probably fair, in my opinion. Cade Mays coming in at 89, and he would be the second highest rated player in the video game if I was doing it. Of course, fifth-year senior, center, 6'4", 310, all SEC center, first team All-American by a couple of different publications entering this season. Cooper Mays, not Cade Mays, Cooper Mays coming in at 89. The third highest ranked Vol in this video game is Squirrel White, coming in at an 87 overall. And this makes sense to me because, Brew McCoy, who we'll get to in a moment, was injured last year. A lot of your receivers who have done a lot in the past are gone. Whole new secondary, injuries all over the place at linebacker, all that type of stuff. And so I think Squirrel White, who is literally the biggest playmaker coming back, returning on this offense, makes a whole lot of sense there to be in at number 3 there at an 87 overall. Of course, he's 5'10", 167 pounds. He has a 95 speed rating, which is probably accurate. He's a super, super fast guy. 87 overall and 91 acceleration, 87 agility. Of course, in his career, he's caught 97 passes for 1,284 yards, 4 touchdowns as well. 25 career games. So Squirrel White's there at number 3, 87. Brew McCoy coming off an injury at 86. Nico Iamaleava coming in at an 86. And I think that's a fair rating, right? You're the number 1 overall prospect signed in the class of 2023. 5-star quarterback. Was a backup last year, but in his one start went out and did what we thought he was going to do. He owned the show, right? He had 3 rushing touchdowns, 1 passing touchdown. Carved up Iowa's defense that was a really, really good defense in 2023. That was in the Citrus Bowl, this past January. So I think that's fair. If Nico is who we believe he is, he'll be at SEC Media Days ahead of the 2025 season, and he'll be, in the next rendition of the video game. He should be up there in the mid-90s, in my opinion, if he is who we think he is. But for starting out right now and what we've seen from him on the field and what he came in terms of recruiting and all that pedigree, I think an 86 overall is a really, really solid ranking to begin things. So Nico comes in as the 5th overall player, fifth highest rated player for the new college football EA Sports 25 video game. Dylan Sampson checks in at 85, given his track record. I think that's pretty fine. Amari Thomas is at 83. Chris Brazzell, new transfer wide receiver, comes in at 82. Dante Thornton, transfer portal addition last offseason, was starting to come into his own there before an injury. He comes in at 81. Jordan Thomas, cracking the top 10 for the University of Tennessee. I think the sky's the limit for him. I think he's got tons and tons of ability. It's just a matter of, can he stay on the field? Can he stay good enough to durability wise? Can he stay on the field enough to go and make some plays? So that was the top 10. I was mentioned in a screen grab from somebody on social media, and I do thank you. I think it was Braden that sent this in to me. Let's see here. No, it was, Braden tagged me in it, so I thank you, Braden. Outside of Jordan Thomas, that was the top 10. The next highest rated Vol was Javonte Spraggins at 81, which makes a whole lot of sense because he's going to be a 4-year starter. Holden Stays comes in at 81 as well, the new transfer tight end commit. And then the next offensive lineman to come in, and this is a little interesting to me. This would technically be overall, rankings number 13 for Tennessee. Third offensive lineman, Jackson Lampley. He very well could be the starter at left guard. He's been, I think this is a 6th year in the program. He's the teammate I want on my roster. He's a Vol legacy. Good kid. Rooting for him. Hope he starts. I really, really do. And he started the last couple of games of last year due to injury. Would not have suspected that he would be an 81 overall. And would not have suspected that he would be a higher rated player than that of John Campbell at right tackle. Even though I know Lance Hurd didn't play an awful lot last year, I thought Lance Hurd would maybe be rated higher than him. But according to this screen grab, Jackson Lampley comes in at an 81 overall. So good for him. I found that kind of interesting. Of course, the public release of the video game is going to be on Friday. The early release, people are going to be playing the video games probably at the time of this podcast, by the time it's released, coming out at, I believe, 4 o'clock on a 4 o'clock on a Monday afternoon. A couple other notes here before we get into segment number 2, some news about the roster. Jersey numbers. The online roster was released for Tennessee football on Monday heading into fall camp. You've got players, jersey number assignments, weights, heights, all that and more. Some freshman jersey numbers to be paying attention to, okay? So these are different from the spring because you got to come in and quote-unquote earn your number, right? Mike Matthews comes in. Number 10 will be his jersey number. Jake Merklinger, number 12. A lot of these are different. Jake Merklinger's was the same. Edwin Spillman will be number 13. Braylon Staley, 14. Edrees Farouk will be 15. Peyton Lewis will be 22. Boo Carter, 23. Caleb Beasley, number 25. Marcus Gorey, number 28. Jordan Ross will be number 29. William Satterai will be number 50. Jordan Burns, 54. Kellen Lindstrom, 56. Jeremiah Hurd, who will start at offensive tackle, will be number 60. Bennett Warren, number 68. Max Anderson, number 71. Jesse Perry, number 72. Gage Ginther, number 78. Cole Garrison, the tight end, will be number 86. And Carson Gentle, the defensive lineman from Chattanooga, will be number 95. Those are the jersey number assignments for the freshman class. Some number changes for some returners, okay? Keep in mind here, Ethan Davis wore number 89. He will now wear number 0. Ricky Gibson goes from number 18 to number 1. Andre Turrentine goes from number 17 to number 2. Squirrel White, of note, goes from number 10 to number 3. Jordan Thomas goes from number 25 to number 4. Christian Harrison, 29 to number 5. Brew McCoy, I don't know why he changed his number, but Brew McCoy goes from number 15 to number 5. Caleb Perry goes from number 4 to number 8. Mike Matthews, I already mentioned him. Chaz Nimrod, 81 to 11. John Slaughter, 33 to number 12. Tyree Weathersby, number 41 to number 18. Jackson Moy, who's a transfer, goes from 99 in the spring to number 51. And Emmanuel Okoye, who is switching from tight end to defensive line and did so in the fall, in the spring, goes from number 27 to number 98. So we go in here. And we look at some of the transfers. Jamal McCoy will be wearing jersey number 3. Jalen McMurray will wear jersey number 6. Jacoby Thomas will wear jersey number 9. Chris Brazzell will wear jersey number 17. Holden Stays 19. Jackson Moy 51. Lance Hurd 53. That's what he wore in the spring. And Miles Kitzelman will wear number 87. So whenever fall camp begins here in just a couple of weeks, you see guys running around there in the highlight videos. Say, who is that guy? Who is that guy? Well, some new numbers, same faces, different jersey numbers. You can go over at volquest.com. We've tracked that. And, of course, go check out the official UT roster over at UT, or I think it's volsports.com. Yeah, volsports.com. All right, got plenty more to get into. Next up, Brent Hubbs, volquest.com, to set the scene for SEC Media Days. And, of course, get us set for get us caught up on Travis Smith, Tennessee's recent wide receiver commit from over the weekend. That is coming up next as we continue on here with a Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols. Stay tuned. I want to tell you about our friends over at eBay Sports. Passion, drive, patience. eBay Motors, that is. Passion, drive, patience. The formula for winning championships is what also keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money is back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into an MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive today at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Brent, Tennessee picked up its 17th commit over the weekend for the class of 2025, a guy that they've been on for quite some time, a nice 4-star wide receiver prospect in the name of Travis Smith. Tennessee jumps up after the reshuffling of the deck for the On3 rankings last week or 2 weeks ago. Tennessee went from 9th to 6th in the SEC and 13th, just knocking on the door to a top 10 class. But it kind of just goes to show you what one commit can do, and a nice commit that in Travis Smith, a highly rated 4-star prospect.
Yeah, priority for Tennessee. I mean, it's the guy who emerged as sort of the last receiver that they wanted to take in the group. And, he's a guy that they have been on for a while. It's a guy that Kelsey Pope really likes, and is a guy that size, speed, length, all the measurables that Tennessee likes as an outside receiver seems to make a lot of sense here. And great kid. I think George McIntyre worked him pretty hard here the last couple of weeks. He really likes Tennessee's offense. He's really comfortable with Pope and those guys. So I think that there's a lot to like about this get. As the case when they don't commit to other schools, it becomes other schools don't want them and that type of thing. When he left his official visit to Georgia, he could have committed. When he left his official visit at Alabama, he could have committed. They put the squeeze. He didn't. He wanted to see all of his schools. And at the end, now maybe there was some reshuffling of the deck with where Alabama was with some other receivers, and same for Georgia. But in the end, I think it all worked out for everybody because Travis Smith ultimately wanted to be at Tennessee. You kind of felt that when you talked to him at the NIL event in Nashville. I mean, he basically told me if you didn't live in the state of Georgia, it would be Tennessee as a slam dunk. So you wondered about the in-state pressure from Georgia. His parents really let him go make his own decision and go through the process. And he just, at the end of the day, liked everything about Tennessee, culture, offensive style, and all those things the most.
Tennessee now has 3 wide receiver commits for this class, and you mentioned that this is kind of the final wide receiver that they wanted to take in this class. Yeah. Of course, Joakim Dotson, in-state prospect, Darius Jackson, who was a fast riser earlier in this cycle, 4-star, also in-state out there in West Tennessee. You think this is going to be it, 3 wide receivers? And if so, or if not, who else could be in the picture? And then also, who were some of these commits that are going to be coming off the board next, whether it be Tennessee or another school?
Yeah, I don't know of another receiver right now. I mean, I think something would have to change for Tennessee to be in the market for another receiver, and I don't envision that happening. I think Tennessee's comfortable with where they are in terms of guys coming off the board. Christian Gass comes off the board this weekend. He's the talented linebacker from down in Georgia. That's a Tennessee-Georgia battle. Tennessee's carried momentum there since the official visit. I think he likes the versatility that he can have in Tennessee's defense. I think that got his attention a great deal. His whole visit was about football, X's and O's. Now, Georgia's really good. They put a bunch of linebackers in the NFL, so we'll see where that one's at. But he's next off the board. Shady Hayward's supposed to come off the board on the 27th, which is his birthday. That feels like Tennessee captured the momentum back. I think Tennessee getting the last visit there with him was critical, and I think it's got a real chance to work out in Tennessee's favor there. I think that one's trended back the right way for Tennessee since that official visit. We'll see when Jaden Pilati does something. He doesn't have a timetable set at this particular point. Could go anytime. You think he's going to go before the start of his senior season, but that could be an August deal. That could be an end of July deal. He may push it back even further. You never know. And then all eyes will be on David Sanders in the middle of August as well. That's kind of the timeline for some guys. But Christian Gass is the next one who's scheduled to come off the board. Juan Gaston's supposed to do something coming up here in a couple of weeks as well.
Yeah, Juan Gaston, teammates of Travis Smith. That doesn't feel like necessarily those two are tied, but it certainly shouldn't hurt Tennessee that they got his teammate that has committed this class, and obviously Tennessee's has been on high on Juan Gaston for quite some time.
Yeah, I mean it's not a situation where those guys have ever talked about playing together, but they are teammates and know each other. But it's not one where they've ever been kind of tied. The only common school between the two has been or schools have been Tennessee and Georgia. Juan Gaston's been out to Oregon, likes a lot of things about Oregon. But I don't know that his mom, I don't know that he's real comfortable being that far from home. Lots of people just assume it's Georgia and that it's going to be Georgia, and it may very well be Georgia. I think assumption is a high risk proposition in that one because he's just not told anybody anything. His parents don't offer up a whole lot either. So we'll see. Again, I think if you're hedging your bets, the safe hedge is Georgia. But at the same time, too, I don't think anybody really knows what Juan Gaston is thinking at this point in time.
Look at the other big news of the week. Obviously, SEC Media Days starting in Dallas yesterday. Tennessee is going to take to the podium as part of 4 teams here today on a Tuesday. Brent, what do you think the biggest storylines for Tennessee specifically this today are going to be with 3 different media rooms and going through the gauntlet of a 3-hour process down there in Dallas?
Well, I think there'll be some talk about, is this a playoff caliber team? Is this a playoff team with the expanded playoffs? Can Tennessee get into that mix as a playoff team? And if they're going to do that, obviously they got to get great quarterback play. So there'll be a lot of discussion about Nico's talents, about Nico probably NIL because he was kind of the first big name there. I don't know that they'll get a ton of NIL questions, but there may be a couple there. But I think it's going to be largely about Nico, a young player in your system for Josh Heupel, and how does that work? And so I think it starts when you're talking about the football side of things. I think it's really going to be about Nico for Tennessee. When you're talking about the other periphery stuff, it'll be Josh Heupel going back to Oklahoma. Josh Heupel's not going to offer up any thoughts on big picture college football things, but he'll get a couple of big picture college football questions that he'll dance around pretty well.
You sure? Because he so loves to talk about things to the media now,
He's very, very open about that for sure. So, I think Nico makes the most sense. And then I think probably he'll have to answer the Oklahoma question in every TV room he goes into. And I mean, he'll get the Oklahoma question every stop he makes.
Yeah.
From Marty and McGee and all the ESPN stuff to the big room, to the TV breakout room, to Radio Row he does. I mean, everywhere he's going to get that question.
When you look at Tennessee and its representatives, it symbolizes what Josh Heupel is to a T, right? I mean, good guys, veteran guys, smart guys, but I mean, the meter's not moving for Cooper Mays, for Keenan Peely, for Amari Thomas. The meter would move for Nico and James Pearce. It just feels like a very Josh Heupel thing to do, to say, hey, we're just going to try to fly on the radar. And something we talked about on the VolQuest podcast as well. You're sharing the day with Eli Drinkwitz of Missouri, who is good for a quote, Kirby Smart in Georgia, who's the class of college football, And then, of course, Oklahoma, who's one of the new kids on the block. It feels like the decision to leave off Nico and James Pearce very much goes into, hey, let's just get in, let's get out, let's not draw attention to ourselves, because as a head football coach, that's kind of how I want to run my program.
Well, listen, Josh Heupel is one of the finest human beings that you'll be around. Josh Heupel is a really good dude. Josh Heupel doesn't have any use for media days. It just doesn't.
Yep.
I mean, and that doesn't make him a bad guy. He doesn't mistreat people. He's not mean to people. He doesn't shoot daggers into you, when you ask a question. He just dances around, and that's just not his thing. He works really hard at giving you nothing and takes a little pride in the fact that he's not going to give you anything. So, I mean, he doesn't love this event. I mean, this is not tailor-made for him. This is not the most comforting thing for him. He wants to get in and out, not make a headline. You know what I mean? He's not going to stand up like Dave Aranda and say, yeah, we're buying players. He's not going to do what the Colorado State coach did and talk about somebody tampering. He doesn't want to have a Gundy moment where he's viral about something he says. He would very much like for nobody to be talking about him on social media when he leaves Dallas, Texas. He just wants to get back to work and get back for the football season. And he's that way with the national media. He's that way with the local media. That's just where his comfort level is. And I think he's taken 3 representatives that'll handle themselves really well, but probably aren't going to create storylines either. And that's okay, because the storyline of the day is going to be Oklahoma anyway. Everybody's going to be writing about Oklahoma's first soiree into the world of the SEC, and that's fine by Josh Heupel.
Awesome stuff there from my boss over at VolQuest.com, Brent Hubbs. We've got so much going on at VolQuest.com right now with tons of recruiting stuff, plenty of coverage, exclusive content from Dallas at SEC Media Days as Tennessee is starting today. Taking to the podium. Of course, they're going to share the day with Missouri and Georgia and Oklahoma. So we got exclusive content from Dallas and SEC Media Days. We got tons of recruiting, as I mentioned, Major League Baseball and the draft, all that and more. It's over at VolQuest.com. Join our community on the General's Quarters. Hey, when we come back, we'll get into your mailbag questions right here as we continue on with the Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back into your Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols. Hey, make Locked On SEC your second listen. No better time than right now with SEC Media Days to make Locked On SEC with Chris Gordy your second listen, your second watch each and every single day this week with SEC Media Days happening right now. But right now here on Locked On Vols, we're going to get into you every day or sending in your questions, and I do really, really appreciate that. We'll start, and again, if I don't get your questions, I do apologize. I record these when I can. Of course, the afternoon before, but we will start with Jeremy over on the YouTube channel. Jeremy asks, do you think Jordan Ross will get playing time? Don't really hear his name too often. Is that a good or a bad thing? Yeah, Jordan Ross, he wasn't here in the spring. He was not an early enrollee, so he missed some time to get acclimated to the college game in the spring. Doesn't mean that he won't play. What we do know is James Pearce is going to play a lot of that Leo position. Joshua Josephs is going to play a lot. Caleb Herring is going to take a step. So Jordan Ross is kind of fourth in line as a true freshman, but that doesn't mean he won't see the field. Defense has packages, pass rushing packages on 3rd and long or whatever. Get multiple Leos out there on the field. Just like you saw Joshua Josephs get a little bit of run there as a true freshman back in 2022, I could see Jordan Ross as well. But he is kind of fourth in line. You've got James Pearce, Joshua Josephs, Caleb Herring, and then it'll be Jordan Ross. And, of course, he hadn't even practiced one time yet. But sky's the limit for him. I think Tennessee's really, really pleased, obviously, to sign him and have big expectations for him in his career, maybe just not in 2024. Corey says, we have 17 commits that I know of, have a limited number from the Pruitt era still here. So if we take Sanders, Gass, Perlotti, Hayward, Onis, and either get Brame back or Gaston, do we have enough scholarships for them all? Thanks in advance, GBO. Easy answer is if any one of those guys want to join the class of 2025, then they're going to have a spot. The reality of this is Tennessee will not get all those players. I don't know which ones Tennessee will miss out on, but you're asking about Sanders, Gass, Perlotti, Hayward, Onis, Brame, or Gaston. I mean, I know you said or there. That's 7 players right now. Tennessee already has 17 commits. Tennessee would welcome them all in. But the reality of the matter is Tennessee's not going to get all those guys. I mean, you're talking about Brame, at least, for Brame, you'd have to flip his commitment. You have to finish that off with Perlotti as well, even though I think Tennessee's in a good spot. I think Tennessee's in a good spot with Gass. I think Tennessee still has great chances for David Sanders. That's the big fish out there. Hayward, Onis as well. Tennessee would take them all for sure. So they would figure it out, if you will. The scholarship matters, but I don't think Tennessee will get them all. Let's go to Kevin. Did college football get rid of the continuous clock? Also, if God forbid Nico were to go down, what is your confidence level with Gaston Moore? Well, Gaston Moore could teach a master's class on this offense from the quarterback position because he came with Josh Heupel to Tennessee. Gaston Moore was a redshirt true freshman, I believe, who was redshirted at UCF. Josh Heupel took the job at Tennessee. Gaston Moore came with him and walked on. So he's not seen a whole lot of playing time. I recognize that. But as far as knowing the offense, knowing what to do, knowing the expectations and all that, I've got full confidence in him. I think early on in the season, it's for sure would be Gaston Moore if something were to happen. I do think if, say, Nico, and again, like you said, God forbid, let's knock on wood, Nico were to miss extended time, maybe a start, 2 starts, whatever it is, could you see a situation where both he and Jake Merklinger play together? I do. Jake Merklinger's got to continue to come along and progress as a true freshman, and he did that in spring practice. But my confidence level in terms of just operation-wise is high on Gaston Moore. Now, he's obviously not as talented as Nico, but I think Tennessee would be able to patchwork something together in the short term. It's that long term that I've got questions, and I think you really need to have Jake Merklinger continue to progress, and I think you might see both of those guys play. Would not be an ideal situation. I'm not breaking any news here. Would not be ideal. The first part of your question about the continuous clock, well, prior to the 2023 season, this was the changes for the clock in college football. The clock runs after first downs, just like it does in the NFL, except for the last 2 minutes of each half. So prior to the rule change, the officials would stop the clock every first down awarded. Now the clock will only stop after first downs in the final 2 minutes of each half. That's the big difference. Also, a team cannot call consecutive timeouts, and untimed downs will only occur as needed in the second and fourth quarters, so the last quarter of each half, essentially. If there's a foul at the end of the first or the third quarter, it will carry over into the next quarter. So those were the big changes going into the 2023 season regarding the clock. We continue on here with your mailbag questions. Let's see here. Zach says, personal question, what are your top 5 moments of Tennessee sports that you can remember? These were off the top of my head, okay? I'm going to be honest with you, Zach, and welcome back to listen to the show, man. I appreciate you being here. These are the top 5 that come to mind. I know there are many, many more, okay? I promise you that, but these are just kind of the top 5 that come to mind. Number 5, the Lady Vols going back-to-back in 07 and 08. I remember that. That was really, really cool. Number 4, I'm cheating here, but both Elite 8 appearances. I would always say the 2010 basketball team for making it to the Elite 8 first time in program history, but obviously Tennessee did that this past basketball season, so I'm going to lump those together. Men's basketball going to the Elite 8 2 times, 2010 and 2024. Number 3, Hail Mary at Georgia. I mean, come on. Dobbs to Jennings, beating Georgia on the road between the hedges. That was awesome. I'll never forget that. Florida was an honorable mention in 2016 as well. Number 2, Alabama game in 2022. I mean, that is the best game, singular game, that I ever covered. Best moment, best series, best whatever you want to call it. For me, of course, is covering the College World Series championship this summer. Nothing will compare to it. Literally covering a national championship. The best game, atmosphere, all that was obviously Alabama 2022 football. But moment for me, covering a college football championship, because that was covering a college baseball World Series championship, because that was just so cool. Quickly, we'll run through a couple more here. Let's go to Clayton. How much weight has Nico put on since the Citrus Bowl? Well, the online roster has him at 215. Ahead of the Citrus Bowl start, I asked Nico off to the side personally, how much is he weighing right now? He said 210 pounds. So by the looks of that, he's gained 5 pounds. We'll see exactly kind of where he is during camp. Clayton also says, out of those drafted from this year's baseball team, who do we see making it to the big leagues as an everyday player first? At the time of this recording, obviously rounds 3 through 10 are ongoing right now. Tennessee had a great first day, most draft picks of any college program over the first 2 rounds with 4. Wake Forest and LSU had 3. Tennessee saw Christian Moore go 8th overall. Blake Burke slide into the first round at 34th overall. Billy Amick go 60th overall in the second round. And Dylan Dreiling go to the Rangers at 65th overall in the second round. Of those 4 right now, and really of anybody that will be drafted as the draft continues on, Christian Moore. I think he's on the fast track for sure. Let's go to Jared. Let's see here. Jared said, what was more surprising to you? Simo going top 10, Burke being a first rounder, Billy Amick going in the second, Beam not getting picked at all in the first 2 rounds, or none of the above, or none of the high school / transfers guys getting drafted. Again, he's talking about through the first 2 rounds. Biggest surprise for me, there was some chatter there on a Sunday that the Angels were really liking Simo there at 8. Didn't know if it would happen, but there was some chatter. But the biggest surprise for me is Burke going all the way in the first round. I mean, he was, MLB.com had him projected as like the 64th or 5th best prospect. That, again, they're just projections and rankings, but I mean, you're talking about cutting that in half, going 34th overall. So the biggest surprise for me was Blake Burke going to the first round. Good for him. That is awesome. That being said, still from Jared here, which guys are most likely to come off the board next in rounds 3 through 10? Again, it's ongoing, and by the time you listen to this, it will be concluded rounds 3 through 10. But I'm recording this so I can be able to work during that time. I expect Drew Beam and Kavaris Tears to go quickly there to start the 3rd round. I think AJ Causey has an opportunity to get drafted in these first 10 rounds, as will Aaron Combs maybe. But I do think this is a big day in terms of signees. You're going to start seeing this number 1 loaded class for Tennessee's class of 2024, some names being drafted, and then we'll have to decide kind of where, if they're going to sign, if they're going to make it to campus and all that. So big day coming up, at least ahead of rounds 3 through 10 on a Monday afternoon. Let's go to Rob. Rob says, is Tony done with transfers for next season's baseball team? How do you see the infield taking shape with the new players coming in, and do we need to watch out for MLB draft with committed players? Yeah, as far as watching out for the committed players for Tennessee, heading into the rounds 3 through 10, and then of course rounds 10 through 20. I'll read you off this list right here. Some names to be on the lookout for. Signees that you need to be watching and paying attention to. Tegan Coons, Anson Siebert, Ty Salicine. I don't know how to say his name, and I apologize. He's going to be a good player, though. Jay Abernathy, Trey Snyder, Manny Marin, Levi Clark, Braden Krenzel, Tate Strickland. Those are some commits from the high school ranks that you need to be paying attention to. Of course, not all of those guys will certainly go and sign professional contracts, but some of them will. Some JUCO guys, Tanner Wiggins, Brandon Arvidsson. You got to pay attention to those guys, as well as will transfer portal commit Eric Radicek from Niagara. Your other part of the question there was, is Tennessee done with transfers? I think so. Right now I do. And, the draft can affect it a little bit, but I was told that I think Tennessee's done with taking transfers for right now. And how will the infield shape up? In my mind right now, Radicek makes it to campus. He plays first base. Dean Curley's at third base. Gavin Keelan at short. Ariel Antigua at second, or vice versa on those two realms. Let's go to... Got a couple more here. Let's go to Trevor. For this week's Twitter Tuesday, can you talk about the 2020 baseball team? If I remember correctly, they started off hot before the season got canceled. Absolutely. Started off with a 15-2 record. Essentially, the 21 team, with the exception of 1 or 2 players, it was the same team in 2020. I mean, Alex Solare went on and got drafted there. So obviously he was not a part of the College World Series team in 21. Garrett Crochet was on the team in 2020. He obviously went on and is pitching the big leagues now. He wasn't a part of 2022, or 2021. But guys like Pete Durkay, Zach Daniels, Drew Gilbert, Liam Spence, Jake Rucker, Max Ferguson, Luke Lipsius, Jordan Beck, Evan Russell, Connor Pavoloni, Trey Lipscomb. All those guys, or most of those guys were a part of the 2021 team, but they were good, man. I mean, they were 15-2 at the time of the at the time that the season was canceled, and they were just a year too early, because obviously that same nucleus of the team made it to the College World Series in 2021. Let's go next to Jeremy. Jeremy, I see your question. I'm going to have to answer it later because I need to do a little bit more research, but Jeremy, I do see your question. James, let's see here. Want to know about the scuttlebutt with Tony Vitello and obviously Chase Burns. He had glowing remarks about Chase Burns on the MLB Network broadcast the other night when he got selected 2nd overall, 3rd overall to the Reds, whatever it was. I don't think that they like each other too much, but you respect what's good, and Tony Vitello respects the baseball player. He'll never say anything bad about him in the public image, but I think that was a divorce that was welcomed at the time, even though you're losing such a great player. And I think that's, obviously Tennessee would have loved to have him, but you went on and won the College World Series this year, so you were fine. It just goes to show you the team is more important than individual player, in my opinion, and that's kind of all I'll say about that. Also, we are running out of time here. Do you think the recruiting services put too much weight on the Elite 11 for quarterback rankings? Yes, I do. Case in point, George McIntyre didn't do it. He dropped like 50 spots, so absolutely. And then finally, we'll conclude here with Braden today. If you could pick a guy on the Tennessee football team to have your back in a fight, who would it be? Elijah Simmons, easily. Don't even have to think about that. For baseball team this past year would have been Robin Villeneuve, and of course he's gone on in the transfer portal, committed to Texas Tech. But Elijah Simmons for sure. How concerned are you with running back as it stands right now? It's a question mark for sure. You need Cam Seldon. It looks like he is recuperating at a really, really nice pace. Need him to jump back in the fray for sure. But those first couple of weeks, man, Dylan Sams is going to have to carry the load for sure, no pun intended. And Deshaun Bishop, Khalifa Keith, Peyton Lewis. How quickly can Peyton Lewis come alive? I think long-term it's going to be okay. But for the first week, two, first couple weeks of the season, yeah, it's a little concerning. I'm not going to lie to you. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in here to Locked On Vols and making us a part of your first listen. Thanks so much for sending in your questions, your comments, your concerns. There's more. I'm obviously you can see that I'm well past my time limit here. Maybe I'll answer some more on tomorrow's show, but I appreciate you guys so much making Locked On Vols your first listen, your first watch each and every single day. Every dayers, you guys are the best. Shout out Brent Hubbs. Thanks for joining the show. We'll have plenty of reaction from Tennessee and Dallas at the SEC Media Days on tomorrow's show. This is Locked On Vols.